Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Franchise Hockey Manager 9 playthrough of the Chicago Blackhawks. We are closing in on two-thirds of the way in the 2027 to 28 season. Blackhawks are a playoff team if the season were to end today, but just barely. We've got about 2.5, 3 weeks till the trade deadline, so still an opportunity to potentially improve our team. Although we have already made a couple trades over the last month or so, just traded for Adrian Kemp. As we talked about in previous episodes, we are well under the salary cap. 31-year-old making over $7 million a year. And we do have to take on that contract for next season also. But he has been a pretty productive offensive player. 34 goals with Toronto a year ago and 16 goals and 17 assists in 39 games this year. And felt like we needed to jumpstart the offense a bit, so we brought him on board. Several weeks ago, we also made a trade for Sam Bennett, 31-year-old versatile forward, can play anywhere on the front line in the final year of his contract. I think that he can help, but think that Kemp is more likely going to make a big impact scoring goals potentially. Part of the reason needed to bring them on board is we've been without Dylan Larkin, who was our top scorer when he got injured with that torn thigh muscle close to 2 months ago, still out another month or two at this point. And then the young defenseman Kevin Korchinski has been out about 3 weeks with a concussion, but should be back any day now. But as far as adding Kemp, big reason why with the loss of Larkin. You can see that right now a defenseman, Quinn Hughes, with 38 points on the year, is our top point scorer. So Quinn Hughes is probably a guy who could compete for a Norris Trophy one of these years, and a very good offensive defenseman, but still probably not the best situation when a defenseman is your leading scorer. Clearly Larkin would be had he been healthy, but hopefully the addition of Kemp will help us provide a little more offense. But with those two trades, no guarantees that we're going to be active and make another move as we get close to the deadline. I certainly would like to get back into the playoffs this year. That's definitely our goal, but also don't want to mortgage the future to do it. And in his first game with the team, did get an assist out of Adrian Kemp, but we lost to Winnipeg 4-2. They are a team that is chasing us in the division, and they've got 2 games in hand on us. So certainly would have preferred to have won that game, but it is what it is as we continue moving on in the schedule here in February. That was our first game out of the All-Star break, taking a look at the rest of the calendar. On the road at the Kings, then we've got 4 in a row. East Coast teams coming in through the Midwest, and then back on the road for Minnesota, Washington, and Seattle before the end of the month. And I think I had home and away games confused when I was talking through that earlier, but it's been a good stretch. It's actually a long road trip that we're going to have on the East, not a home stand. We beat the Kings at home. We beat Carolina, lost to Pittsburgh, and then beat Philadelphia. So we won 3 of the last 4, with 3 of those games being on the road, which is very positive. Obviously, or maybe not obviously, but we started our backup goalie in the game against the Flyers when we were going back to back, and although we did win the game 4-1, have a couple of injury issues that we're going to have to figure out right now. Svedeback is going to be out for 1 to 2 months with a fractured jaw, so we're not going to delay his treatment. Put him on the IL. We don't play a ton of back-to-back games, but will give us an opportunity to bring up a goalie from the AHL. And then Cole Sillinger is going to be banged up for about 8 days, so that's a somewhat less serious injury. Sillinger, the 24-year-old, 17 goals this year in 49 games. You can see he scored 17 in 80 games last year, so has definitely been more productive in terms of putting the puck in the net, but minus 12 this year after being plus 25 last season, so still learning on the job a little bit. And down in AHL, we've got 28-year-old Samuel Urson, who's kind of been our primary insurance policy the last couple of years. You can see he's 11-15 with a 276 goals against. We also got Drew Comesso, who we signed to an extension, who's 8-10 with a 250 goals against, 25-year-old. We're actually going to bring Comesso up. Urson is probably a little better right now, but Comesso, as you can see, has some opportunity to grow, is a few years younger, and we've also got him signed for another year. So we're going to bring Comesso up to the big club to be our backup with the injury to Svedeback. And we also brought up 24-year-old right winger Evan Kanyan from Rockford. He almost made the team coming out of training camp. Don't think he's going to get a ton of playing time here at the NHL level, but a 24-year-old who we did sign to an extension to remain in our organization. Can't hurt to get a little look at what he can do for us. But as I mentioned, he's probably the last guy off the bench at this point, so probably only going to be playing, once every couple of weeks for us unless we have some more injuries. Larkin's still a month or two away. Svedeback obviously out a month or two, and we did put Sillinger on the IL, which opened up the spot for us to bring up Kanyan just to give us extra healthy skater for the next week or so. And with both Sillinger and Larkin on the IL at center, going to have to get a little creative. The youngster Nathan Villeneuve and the youngster Victor Eklund are on our number one line right now with the veteran Mitch Marner. And Bo Horvat, who we're probably almost certainly moving on from at the end of this year, is back to being our second line center. Bennett, who we brought on the trade, is our third line center. And then Frank Nazar, the versatile young power forward, is going to get a little action at center since he's got a little more versatility than some of the other players on our fourth line. And unfortunately, we have lost 2 in a row now at Washington and then home against Minnesota. Got an opportunity to get revenge home against the Capitals today and then Seattle at the end of the month. It's a leap year here in 2028. So with those 2 losses in a row, we had gotten a little bit of a cushion, and now we're in a 3-way tie at 65 points for the 2 wild card spots in the West with Vegas, the Coyotes, and ourselves. Arizona's got 2 games in hand on us. We do have a game in hand on Vegas, but it's still definitely a challenge here. You can see minus 16 is our goal differential on the year, and with 195 goals allowed, that's not really a great number compared to most of the teams that are going to be in the playoffs if the season ended today. Hopefully we'll get a little bit better defense going forward. Certainly having Korchinski back probably helps a bit. Still going to be a while till we get Larkin back, unfortunately. Going to take a quick look now, just who's on the trading block, any real difference makers out there. We had inquired about Jason Robertson from the Sabres a while ago. 28-year-old still signed for 4 years, making 11 million. Clearly would be a difference maker, but he is the price was prohibitive. Let's put it that way. Was also a bit intrigued by Brendan Brisson in the final year of his contract with Vegas. 26-year-old, pretty productive offensive player and some pretty good offensive skills. Has 28 goals and 37 assists this year, so certainly would be a boost to the offense. He's unhappy with the situation there in Vegas. And it doesn't look like he's been signed to an extension, obviously. So there's a chance he'll be a free agent this year. I would think that the Golden Knights would do everything in their power to get a 26-year-old with his ability signed. Did inquire on him, and it was going to take 2 first-rounders plus more to get him, given that we just spent, well, didn't just, but a year and a half ago, we spent 2 first-rounders to bring our starting goalie, Jasper Wellstat, on board. Still don't have a number 1 in the upcoming draft here in 2028. So we would have to give our 2029 and 2030 number 1s plus some other assets to get Brisson. I think he could definitely help us offensively, but that price is pretty high for a player who might be a free agent this offseason. Obviously, if we brought him on board, we'd try to get him locked up for the long term, and I'm pretty confident we could do that. But just seems like a little bit aggressive, given that we're a borderline playoff team at this point. He could obviously help us offensively, but I think right now my plan is to kind of use Kemp, who's got 4 points in 7 games. And then Sam Bennett has not been very effective at all offensively with just 5 points in 25 games. But use those guys as our big, in quotes, additions in trade during this season. And hope that, Sillinger will be back very soon. And then hopefully we'll get Larkin maybe for the last couple games of the regular season if we're in a playoff push at that point. And we split those last 2 games in the month of February, beat the Caps 6-2 to get a little revenge on them, but then we lost 3-2 to the Kraken. Taking a look at the standings, 67 points, still in that 3-way tie for 2 spots at 67 with the Coyotes and the Golden Knights. And we've now lost the game in hand to the Golden Knights at this point. So it is going to be a battle for the playoffs. It's going to come down to how we can do over these last 21 games once again. Hopefully we will be able to get back in. Would be nice to get a chance at the Stanley Cup. Taking a look at the development report for February, a lot of the youngsters still developing well. Jaracek, Shields, both goalies, Svetovac and Wallstat, and Nathan Villeneuve, the good offensive player, getting a little better with his hitting, which we like to see also. And then obviously a lot of development in the minors. Unfortunately, the 2 veterans that we traded for, Sam Bennett and Adrian Kemp, both moving in the wrong direction. Obviously, we'll be moving on from Sam Bennett most likely at the end of this year with him being in the final year of his contract. Kemp, we've got him for over $7 million next year, as I said. I think we probably could get out from that contract and get a little bit in return in the offseason if we decided there were better options in free agency or the trade market. But the hope is still here that he will be a pretty productive offensive player for us as he gets a little more comfortable skating with the Blackhawks. And owner still says no reason to worry about our job, which is good. Fans still aren't thrilled with our performance, which I get. Haven't made the playoffs in 2 years. Good news that the Click has broken up at this point. We obviously made, well, again, I'm saying obvious and assuming that you've followed previous episodes with great vigor and detail, but we did make some trades to help break up the click issues that we were having. No clicks, no conflicts right now. Few unpopular players in the locker room, including the players we traded for, as well as Sharangovich, who we signed as a free agent last offseason. So we've brought some problems onto the team, and Quinn Hughes is unhappy with his ice time. I mean, the guy's a first-line defender for us, getting 23-plus minutes a game. I don't totally understand that, but it is what it is. Taking a look at job security, fan happiness, still not good, hovering in that 40 range where we've been for quite some time at this point. Job security still sound, but certainly in terms of getting a little more credibility with Rocky Wirtz and also getting the fans back onto our side, would certainly like over these final 21 games of the season to do enough to get into the playoffs. And the trade deadline is today on March 3rd. Cole Sillinger is back and healthy now after that little stint on the IL. So that'll allow us to move Evan Kanyan back to the AHL. He didn't end up playing while he was up, unfortunately, but trying to put the best roster out there that we can every day. Taking a look at the schedule for the month of March. Relatively even mix between home and away games, although I think we probably have an extra away game or two, just visualizing it relatively quickly. Not going to do the math. Big back-to-back here, home and home with Vancouver. We're at the Canucks today, and then going to be home against them tomorrow. Taking a look at the standings, they are one of the weaker teams in the Western Conference, although 62 points is a bit misleading because although that puts them last place in the Pacific Division, they're really only 5 points behind us for a playoff spot at this point. So definitely would love to win both of those games, but obviously tough to win a home and home, both ends of it. And with the back-to-back games today, we're actually going to give Comesso his first start on the road at Vancouver. Sillinger still only 80%, so he's going to sit today. He'll be healthier tomorrow at home. And we'll have Wallstat going at home tomorrow. So maybe we can steal one with the youngster Comesso today. If not, definitely we'll need to get the win tomorrow to at least split the home and home against the Canucks. And it was a brutal NHL debut for the youngster Comesso. You can see we lost 7-3, and he's got a 6.04 goals against and an 860 save percentage. Got pulled eventually. So hopefully we can win today with Wallstat, but we got crushed 7-3, and Sam Rinzel, Sharangovich, and Bo Horvat all banged up with day-to-day injuries. So pretty rough start to the month of March for the Blackhawks. Hopefully we can bounce back tonight at home. And we did bounce back with a 5-2 win at home, which was good. You can see Jarachik, Marner, and Quinn Hughes. So two defensemen and probably our top offensive player getting the stars. Unfortunately, Nathan Villeneuve, the brilliant young winger, was suspended for the next 6 games. Obviously, less than ideal timing for that to happen with Rinzel, Sharangovich, and Horvat being banged up. Taking a look at the schedule. Got a couple days off after we play. We go off day, on day, off day, on day, then 2 games off before we make a road trip out to Buffalo, Detroit, and Columbus. So hopefully by the time we're doing the road trip, the guys who are banged up a little bit will be healthier. And hopefully we can piece things together, and the home ice advantage helps us, because with games against Calgary and Colorado, those are both teams that we're chasing in the standings. Calgary is 7 points ahead of us. Colorado is 4 points ahead of us. So those are going to be big challenges for us, especially with the roster that's a bit depleted. But on our home ice, got to try to figure out a way to get 2 points. And we ended up splitting those 2 games, Horvat and Rinzel. Horvat close to being back. Rinzel will be back for our next game when we go out on the road trip. Lost to Calgary 5-1. Did bounce back to beat Colorado yesterday 5-3. Another couple days to get healthy before we've got 3 road games in a row. The standings remain challenging. Familiar theme here. 71 points on the outside looking in, but tied with the Coyotes and the Golden Knights for those last 2 spots. Coyotes with 3 games in hand on both teams have a big advantage. Vegas has got a better goal differential than us right now. I think that's the difference with them being in and us being out. So perfectly flat, 34, 28, and 3 for both us and Vegas. 17 games left in the season. Would be nice to start stringing a few wins together, particularly if we can do them. If we could win 2 out of these 3 games on the road, that would be huge. And we did end up getting 2 or 3 on the road trip. Beat the Sabres 5-4 and beat the Blue Jackets 3-1, and those were actually the 2 tougher games, at least based on the standings. We lost to Detroit 3-2. We ended up using Comesso in that game since we had the back-to-backs, and he was at least respectable this time around after a pretty rough start to his career on the road in Vancouver earlier this month. And we got back home, lost 4-3 to Montreal. Although I think haven't been paying close attention. I think it may have been an overtime loss at least. Nope, it was not. So that's not good. And now Bo Horvat, strained hip muscle, which is going to impact him 1 to 2 months. We are so weak at center right now. The good news is that Villeneuve is back from that suspension, which helps us a little bit at center. Horvat, has been overall disappointing since we brought him on board several years ago. 13 goals and 9 assists this year. There's part of me that, given that he's going to be a free agent, wants to delay treatment and just push him through it. You can see he's only 1% right now, though. So not sure how effective he'll be if we do shoot him up and try to push through things. We're still a month or 2 away from Larkin. Got some thinking to do on this one. And we don't have a ton of depth in AHL at the forward position. If we were to put Horvat on the IL, we would end up bringing up Kanyan, who you may remember we just didn't really want to play when he was up last time. So I think I'm going to keep Horvat on the roster, and we are going to let him we're going to delay treatment and try to play through that strained hip muscle. He's probably only going to be playing, back-to-back days once a week, although you can see he's 90% now. So probably not going to be playing every day, but I would rather get a little bit out of him as we're trying to push for the playoffs here. Hopefully, having him on the ice helps get us into the playoffs. And then we'll have Larkin back, hopefully, if and when we do get to the playoffs, and Horvat can play even less. Feel like we're abusing him a bit, but he's 32 years old in the final year of his contract with us. As I said, we're very unlikely to re-sign him. Last I had checked in, he was looking for a lot. Yeah, still over $5.5 million a year. So for a player at his age, with his level of productivity, definitely won't be bringing him back. So we'll get what we can get out of him over these last month and a half of the season. And these next two road games are going to be critical, at Arizona and at Dallas, two teams that are in our division and that we're chasing in the standings. I'd say the Arizona game is more important. They've got 78 points. We've got 76 points. Certainly would love to catch Dallas, but they're 7 points ahead of us right now. So I think we're going to try to do everything we can to beat the Coyotes today. And then probably go and give Drew Commesso a third start in front of the net tomorrow at Dallas, in a game that's a little bit of a less must-win for us. But we're getting to the point of the season where everything's a must-win. And we got a split. We did end up doing it the hard way. Started number one goalie Jesper Wellstat and lost 4-1. But then got a first win out of Commesso yesterday in a 6-4 win at Dallas. You can see we've got 5 games left this month, only 2 at home against Nashville and Tampa Bay. The playoff situation is still basically the way it's been every time we've checked in. 78 points, 3 teams fighting for those last 2 spots. Both of the teams we're chasing have a game in hand on us right now, or in the case of the Jets, 2 games in hand. So with 11 games left, starting to get to the challenging point again. Got to get some W's. Sharangovich and Sam Rinzel are both banged up with injuries again. That's going to be happening at this point in the season. Hopefully we can piece things together enough to probably need to win 7 of those last 11 games. I'd say that's a target right now. If we can go 7-4, feel pretty confident that we'll get into the playoffs. That'll get us to 92 points. So that's the goal. And we had gotten off to a decent start in that 5-game stretch, winning against Nashville and Vegas, but now we've just lost 2 in a row on the road at Seattle and at Calgary. So definitely would love to get a win against Tampa Bay to go 3-2 in these last 5 games of the month of March. Did have some small good news in that Sam Rinzel is now just about recovered from that injury, and also Dylan Larkin about to resume skating. So hopefully we can remain healthy the rest of the way. Taking a look at the standings, still tied for that last playoff spot, but we would be in the playoffs right now. Kind of some different teams in the mix right now. You can see Vegas has been struggling a little bit. Winnipeg has slipped back a bit, but the Avalanche are up 2 on us. We are tied with Edmonton for that last playoff spot. They do have a game in hand on us. We have 3 more wins than they do. So if they lose their next game, that puts us in a much better position. 7 games left, though, and according to the math that I brought up a little earlier, 5 wins will guarantee us a playoff spot. But going to have to get the home game to finish off the month, definitely against Tampa Bay, and then we'll worry about April when we get into April. And we did get the home win 2-1 against the Lightning, so that was big for us. Taking a look at the development report, really good month for some of the guys at the NHL level. Comesso, Cotter, Coughlin, Jaracek, Korchinski, Rotundi, Sillinger. So a lot of the younger players doing some good development. And not surprisingly, some of the older guys, Bennett and Horvat, moving in the wrong direction. But we went 3-2 in those 5 games to finish off the month of March, which, given that 3 of them were on the road, we'll take it. Now we're looking at the month of April. Based on the math I've been using, we need to go 4-2, and we do have 4 home games to start the month. Game against the Coyotes is going to be a huge one. Game against those final 2 games at Colorado and at Minnesota are also going to be big in the standings. Calgary, very good team. That's going to be a big game at home, not a team that we're going to catch in the standings. But we've got it all in front of us right now. Taking a look at the standings here as the month of April begins. Still tied for that final spot, and the Oilers still have a game in hand on us. So we're not in a great position. There are 3 points of separation to the teams that are chasing for those final wild card spots. We're 2 points behind the Avalanche, so got to get the job done on the ice. Like I said, my math says if we can go 4-2, we will be a playoff team. And as we get ready for that first game in April in this 4-game homestand, actually a 5-game homestand with the game that we played a few days ago to finish off the home schedule for the Blackhawks. Rocky Wirt's still satisfied with us, wants us to be a contender next year. Fans still not thrilled with what we're doing. Clearly, what happens over the next 6 games is going to be critical. Don't think that we're going to be fired, but definitely time to get this team back in the playoffs. And we did get a 3-2 or 4-3 win against the Penguins, so that was big. Home ice, which favored us, but they are a team that's won 45 games, so that was definitely a good challenge. Taking a look at the conference standings, we are 2 points up now on Edmonton. They still have a game in hand on us, but with the W, even if they were to win their next game and that game in hand, we've still got them by 4 in the win column, 3 even if they win their next game. So still got to go 3-2 down the stretch, I think. We're minus 15 in our goal differential, which is much worse than Edmonton, but hopefully we can get into the playoffs and see what happens there. And backup goalie Philip Svedabak says he's ready, so that's good. Comesso just played in 4 games, 1-1-1 record, 382 goals against, 899 save percentage. So certainly was not great, but got the job done. Other than that first game, which was obviously brutal, he was at least respectable after that. Don't expect that we'll be playing Svedabak at all in these last 4 games of the year. Actually, I take that back. There's a chance we may have to play him in one of those back-to-back games, Calgary and at Colorado. So a chance that he'll see some action. But right now, we've got a game against San Jose coming up tomorrow. They are one of the weaker teams in the Western Conference with 76 points, so that feels like one that we really need to win at home. And we did get a 4-2 win against the Sharks. Looking at the schedule, that would have been a real tough one to lose, because they were definitely one of the weaker teams that we're playing against. The young defenseman Korchinski with a couple assists, got a goal from Kemp. He also got a goal from Sharangovich and Paul Cotter early. Final goal was from Villeneuve, his 26th of the year. Assists from Victor Eklund and Rasmus Anderson. So we've done what we've needed to. I think at this point, at least by the math that I had come up before, we need to go 2-2 in these last three to get into the playoffs. But I'd like to go 3-1 and just kind of feel better about things. You can see we are in right now, and the 3 and 4 teams kind of chasing us for that last wild card spot in the West don't have any games in hand on us anymore. In Vegas, actually, we've got a game in hand on them. And actually, I'm looking at the wrong team. We're not even in 8th anymore. We're the Avalanche. We're not the Avalanche. We're the Blackhawks. We got 88 points. So we are in the first wild card spot at this point, 3 games up on the playoffs. So feel pretty confident that 2-2 will get us there. But all the teams chasing us, at least the first 4 teams chasing us, do have a game in hand on us. So I guess it's a little more secure position than I thought when I thought we only had 86 points and I was looking at the wrong thing. But all those teams do have an opportunity to get tied with us in terms of the number of points. Well, the Avalanche can tie us. The others can close the gap on us with those games in hand. So clearly, game against the Avalanche is going to be huge when we get to that. Between now and then, we've got Arizona and Calgary at home. Arizona and Calgary are 2 of the better teams in the conference. Arizona, we're not going to catch them. And Calgary looks like they are pretty much locked in as the 3rd seed out of the Pacific. So maybe we'll catch Calgary when they're not playing for much. But certainly not going to be easy to win both of these next 2 games against those tough teams, even though they're at home. But clearly, if we're going to split these final 4 games, easiest way to do it is going to be to take care of business on our home ice. And we did do job number 1, 5-2 win yesterday against Arizona. Marner with a goal and 3 assists. Villeneuve with a goal and 2 assists. Eklund with a goal and an assist. So the offense finally woke up in our penultimate home game of the regular season. So we're on a bit of a hot streak here at home. Beat Tampa, as we talked about at the end of the month. And then since then, we beat Pittsburgh, San Jose, and Arizona. So just 1 home game left against Calgary before we go on the road at Colorado and at Minnesota to finish off the season. Still only up 2 points on a playoff spot. But everyone does have 79 games played at this point. And we've also got 43 wins. So that Avalanche game is going to be huge on the road. They are one of the teams chasing us. They're also 1 behind us in wins. Wins, we're not in bad shape, particularly if we beat the Avalanche for a tiebreaker. But our goal differential is still not impressive. Definitely don't want it to come down to that. And getting ready for the home game against Calgary. We are going to be playing tomorrow at Colorado. The Colorado game is the bigger one because they're chasing us and they're in the same division. And if they get the W tomorrow against us, that ties them with us for wins. And they've got a better goal differential. They'd still be a point behind. assuming that we do the same thing here today that they do. But we've been playing so well at home. That I think we're going to go with our number one goalie, Wallstat, and just try to get the W at home, keep this streak going. Horvat, only 80%. I think he's only played one game since that hip strain. So we're kind of using him when we may need him tomorrow. Obviously, we could start Wallstat back to back if we want. Certainly putting Sveta back between the pipes in his first game back from an injury is a difficult situation, particularly if it ends up being a must-win game at Colorado. But the way that we can avoid that being a must-win game is winning today at home against Calgary. So that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to start Wallstat. See if we can win another game at home. And we did get the 6-4 win. So that's the 7th win that I said we were going to need for the playoffs. Not good news that Nathan Villeneuve, shoulder soreness in his day-to-day, 27 goals and 29 assists for the 21-year-old. He has really exploded onto the scene this year, particularly needing to move up to the number one line with Larkin being down. 6-4 win. Sharangovich, a goal and an assist. Sam Bennett, 2 goals. So 2 new additions, 1 through free agency and 1 through trade, getting 2 of the 3 stars for the game. Taking a look at the conference standings right now, still only 3 up on the Avalanche. So we can basically clinch if we beat them on the road today. They can make things interesting if they beat us, though. And then taking a look at the schedule, then we're going to be at the Wild. So 2 road games in a row to finish. I know I said that based on the math I laid out a couple of weeks ago, we've gotten the 7 wins that I said that we needed to make the playoffs. So maybe we don't need to win another game. But I'd certainly feel a lot better if we win one. If we win against the Avalanche today, we're basically in. Maybe even have clinched it. Certainly don't want to have to beat a Wild team on the road that's going to be fighting for the number 1 seed overall in the Western Conference in that final day of the season. So the big decision is what the roster is going to look like today. Defensemen all at 100%. Coughlin hasn't been playing as much. He's minus 12 on the year. So would love to get the youngster some ice time, but he's going to stay out. Villeneuve now banged up, game unavailable. So Bo Horvat, now's your chance to show that us delaying that injury treatment is going to give you an opportunity to hopefully have a big impact on the ice. Also got to figure out whether we want to play Formenton. He hasn't been playing as much this year. He's going to be gone after this season. 28-year-old looking for a lot of money. Not that great a player. Not that popular in the locker room. So we have been given some of his ice time to some youngsters, particularly Frank Nazar, who has, if you're paying close attention, you'll see that with all the injuries we've had at center, he has transitioned to center being his number 1 position. Minus 16 on the year, 9 goals and 9 assists. Hasn't been great, but still a young and improving player who we do have signed for the medium term. I don't know that we can take Eklund out of the lineup with 40 points in 48 games. Paul Cotter has been solid. I think we still sit Formenton. And then the big decision is, do we play Wallstat at 90% or a fully rested Sveta back? Svedabak has been solid for us this year. 5-3-1 record, 294 goals against, 914 save percentage. Looking at the goals against and save percentage, he's been a little better than Wallstat just based on the pure numbers. Huge spot for him on the road at Colorado. But we are going to, we typically play two different goalies when we play back-to-back games. That's been our way all year, and we're going to do it today. We're going to rest Wallstat. Hopefully we get the W today, and the game against the Wild doesn't mean anything, but we'll have him 100% if we do end up needing to win that final game of the year. Let's see what happens with Colorado. And a 4-3 loss. It looks like it may have been an overtime loss, though, which gets us at least another point. It was an overtime loss. So we're 2 points up. The issue is, though, the Avalanche would have an extra win if they win and we lose our final game of the year, so they can still catch us. Would love this all to be completely resolved. But it's not, although we're in a better spot than I thought, because even if the Avalanche catch us, the Kings are also trying to catch us. But they could, though, because they'd get to 44 wins also if we lose. And as I've talked about, we've got the worst goal differential of anyone who's competing. So it's kind of crazy. I thought that 7 wins in those last 11 games would get us there. Right now we do have those 7 wins, but it still hasn't been clinched yet. And as we get ready for the final game of the season, Larkin getting close to being ready. Doesn't look like anyone's played, so I don't really know. I was hoping maybe someone wasn't playing on, excuse me, this last day of the season. But there is definitely a scenario where if both the Avalanche and the Kings win and we lose, we're going to be out of the playoffs because of our bad goal differential. So the Avalanche are at Arizona. Checking in on every little permutation here. And the Kings are home against Anaheim. Was hoping they might be playing each other. So the Kings facing one of the top teams that's fighting for the number 1 seed. We're facing one of the top teams that's fighting for another, that's also fighting for the number 1 seed. And I've already forgotten who the Avalanche have. Oh, the Coyotes. So everything would have to go wrong. If we can get a point against the Wild, even an overtime loss, we're fine. But if the Avalanche and the Kings both win and we lose, I think we're out of the playoffs. So it's coming down to game 82. Taking a look at the Blackhawks roster, Villeneuve unavailable, banged up, and Horvat only at 72%. So we're going to sit him. Formenton going to be on the ice this final game of the year. I think a full strength Formenton is better than a 72% Bo Horvat. Haven't been playing Coughlin lately, so we're going to sit him. Wallstat completely fit and ready to go. He will be back in front of the net. See what happens. A win and we're in, an overtime loss and we're in. A loss opens things up, and it was a 6-4 loss. Let's take a look at these standings. And it looks like we are okay. Oh, it looks like the teams chasing, did they both have overtime losses? I think they did, because they both ended up with 92 points instead of 93 points. Or actually, no, it's different teams. But the Avalanche looks like they had an overtime loss, which only got them to 92. We ended up tied with the Kings in the Flames with 93 points each. But we are going to be back in the playoffs by 1 point over both the Avalanche and the Oilers. But I said that we thought 7 wins in those last 11 games would get us there, and the math was right, although we did end up getting a point from an overtime loss along the way. I guess I didn't point that out, but that loss against the Avalanche was an overtime loss, which got us a very important extra point. So the 7 wins actually wouldn't have done it. We needed 7 wins and that overtime loss to get to 15 points and just make it. But Dylan Larkin now on the brink of returning, and the Chicago Blackhawks are finally back in the playoffs. So we will see if we are able to do some damage as a wild card in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.